Yes.
Is this good?
Yes. This is Michael de Laine of the Copenhagen Voice. I'm at a meeting hosted by the International Rehabilitation Center for Torture of Victims, it's called in English. With me is Brita Sydhoff, and you are here because of your role as Director? Secretary General. Brita, is there more torture today than there was a few years ago?
I hope there is not more. Torture in many countries has diminished. You know very well that in countries like Chile, Argentina, for example, in Latin America, there is a different situation today than to before. But sadly, we also get reports from our colleagues around the world that in many countries, torture is increasing. So the battle is constant, I'm afraid.
But do you have more people coming to your center for help?
Our centers in 73 countries around the world are not enough. Sadly speaking, I mean, there are many people, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions, that need our support and help, but that cannot get it because we don't have enough resources and we are not in every country.
What type of help do you give the victims?
Firstly, we give the survivors of torture medical support, including also psychological support. But most of our centers around the world today also have legal counseling, so to help the persons with maybe if they want to have a court case against the perpetrator. In many places also we have social workers who try and help the families of the victims, because as you well know, in many cases persons are tortured and maybe they are handicapped as a result, or they disappear for years into detention and the families are left alone. So we try and also help those families.
What can we as ordinary people do to prevent torture or to cut it back in a way?
I think the most important is to always speak up against torture and to recognize that torture is a crime. It is forbidden in international law, and as such anybody who tortures should be brought to a trial, to a court. So I think that by all the time talking about that it is forbidden and that it also doesn't lead anywhere. We know now from Guantanamo and other horrific places that where torture has been rampant in the past years, that not much evidence has come out of this, but sadly instead a lot of more torture, and I think also a lot of bitter people, and I don't think that that's what we want to have. Even if there is a fight against terrorism, there are other means of interrogating persons, so torture is absolutely not the way forward. On the contrary, it backfires.
How many trials have there been of people accused of torturing?
How many trials around the world? I wouldn't know that, but of course there are some crime trials right now, and one of them is the former leader of the Republika Srpska in Bosnia, Karadzic, and we have a center in Sarajevo, and many of the clients there are of course survivors and victims of his policies, and many of them I hope will be able to go to the ICC and witness against him. So I don't know how many trials there are, but I would say even though there are many, there aren't enough, because catching the perpetrator is another key conclusion and to stopping torture.
Well, he kept himself hidden for many years. He practiced as a psychologist under another name for many years. He was arrested, was it 2 years ago?
Yes.
And has been in detention since then.
Yes.
The trials have started. The trial will last 3 years or maybe more. It's a long process.
Yes, sometimes justice does take a long time, and you know very well that there are still people haunted and hunted around the world from the Second World War. But I think that justice must always win, and that's why we will never give up to find the perpetrators wherever they try and hide. So I think this is a good lesson for the people that think that there is a way out committing human rights violations. There aren't, because we will always find those people and they will be brought to trial.
How effective is the UN Torture Convention?
Well, it is an important convention, and we, of course, try to have governments sign and ratify it. I think the Committee Against Torture is also very important, trying to scrutinize those countries that have signed the convention to live after it. So it is a very important convention, and then there are other conventions, of course, supporting that convention. But the problem is not the convention, usually. It is the whole, the living after it, the implementation of the convention. That is the problem.
The main subject today has been the press, and not torture itself, but revealing torture.
Yes.
What role do you see the press having, and does it fulfill that role?
I think the media is extremely important in giving populations and people of power also the facts. It has been said here many times today that in countries where the journalists actually are the revealers of torture and other human rights abuses, the journalists themselves become targets. And many journalists in many countries are tortured and killed. So it shows that media is powerful, and I wish that media would write even more and also show upon the solutions and show that it isn't hopeless. Perpetrators are caught, and there are countries that do stop torture. So I think that the journalists have a fantastically important role. And we, as a health-based organization, work together with journalists all over the world to try and fight for the rights of torture survivors, and that the truth may come forward.
Brita Sydhoff, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.